Good evening. I'm Chris Reed. I'm chair of the Department of Film Video at Stevenson and a film critic for WYPR and for Dragon Digital Media. My talk this evening is Cinnovation, Major Milestones in Movie History. And there were many milestones that I could have focused on. I chose, with only 20 slides, to talk about primarily technological and artistic, though I could have also talked about gender, racial, sexual identity, and sexual preference milestones, of which there aren't enough. But here we go. The first movie cameras were developed in the 1890s by the American Thomas Edison and the Frenchman Auguste and Louis Lumière. To see Edison's films, you needed a kinetoscope, which allowed a single viewer to watch alone. The Lumiere's camera doubled as a projector, creating the first public movie screenings. Those early films featured no editing, but filmmaker Georges Méliès soon experimented with cuts within and between shots. He loved how a cut could make an object magically appear or disappear, or make a rocket ship land in the eye of the moon, pictured here in his 1902 A Trip to the Moon. The first years of the 20th century also saw filmmakers experiment with cinematic language and camera movements, including pans, tilts, and tracking shots, finally freeing the camera from the confines of the theatrical proscenium. In the 1920s, young Russian filmmakers developed a theory of editing called montage, best represented in Sergei Eisenstein's 1925 battleship Potemkin. Eisenstein said that if you juxtaposed two images, you created a connection that lent new meaning to each original image. Movies had never truly been silent. They'd always had live musical accompaniment. Early synchronized sound technologies didn't catch on, but in 1927, Warner Brothers released The Jazz Singer, using the new sound-on-disc Vitaphone system, and it became the first talking picture, or talkie. Technicolor introduced a two-strip process in the 1920s, and then in the 30s, a three-strip process that recreated most colors of the spectrum. The animation pioneer Walt Disney used it in his first full-length feature, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, in 1937. Color was, however, expensive, and most films remained in black and white. Orson Welles' 1941 Citizen Kane showcased classic Hollywood chiaroscuro lighting that would flourish in what we later came to call film noir or dark film, a look that defined the 1940s. The rise of television after World War II led Hollywood studios to make more films in color and invent new methods to draw viewers away from their homes. These included widescreen and 3D, both used in Alfred Hitchcock's 1954 Dial M for Murder. By the 1960s, engineers had found a way to make portable sound recording devices to go along with the small cameras used during World War II. Portable sound and picture allowed documentarians to create fly-on-the-wall movies called cinema verite, also known as observational or direct cinema. In 1968, Stanley Kubrick made 2001: A Space Odyssey, a film that would influence all space exploration movies to come. He and screenwriter Arthur C. Clarke also came up with the unsettling vision of an artificial intelligence, HAL, the supercomputer, who turns on his creators. Almost a decade later, George Lucas released Star Wars, in which he introduced motion tracking technology that allowed the movement of model spaceships photographed against blue screen backgrounds to be matched to later camera movements across different backgrounds. Never one to rest on his laurels, Stanley Kubrick pushed film technology ahead once more in 1975 with Barry Lyndon, for which he developed special light-sensitive lenses. They could open to an astonishingly wide aperture, allowing Kubrick to photograph his scenes in actual candlelight. Also in 1975, cameraman Garrett Brown invented the Steadicam, a stabilizing system that creates fluid motion without the need for dollies and tracks. Here, Brown talks to Sylvester Stallone on the set of Rocky, where the Steadicam was used for that famous run up the steps of the Philadelphia Art Museum. The end of the 1980s saw the invention of computerized editing systems. Avid was the first big company to offer a platform where film footage could be digitized and then endlessly manipulated in whatever sequence the editor desired. The days of making actual physical cuts and splices were numbered. The years 1993 and 1995 saw two more groundbreaking achievements in digital technology. First, Steven Spielberg released Jurassic Park, in which computer-generated dinosaurs romped on screen, and then Pixar entered the world of animation with the first entirely digitally animated feature film, Toy Story. Digital projection arrived in the late 1990s. Didn't catch on right away, but George Lucas used the technology for Star Wars Episode I, The Phantom Menace. Slowly, the quality improved, and now, since 2014, Hollywood has ceased to release films on prints. It's all digital. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, companies like Nikon and Canon released consumer-priced single-lens reflex cameras that captured images with similar resolution to 35mm film. Red and Arriflex followed with much more expensive cinema cameras, and suddenly the digital image was here to stay. These days, it's all about the image resolution. Most people's TVs screen at 1080 horizontal lines of vertical resolution, yet engineers can already produce images at 8K or 8000 and beyond. Most films today are shot at 4 or 5K and then projected at 2K. Today's studios are trying familiar 1950s gimmicks to get you, the viewer, out of your homes and into the theater. Films like The Hobbit offer 3D again, and also newer high frame rates, which make everything look like a live sports event. That last one's not catching on so much. Finally, how we watch the moving image has changed too. In 2015, we have unlimited access to media anywhere, anytime, and can watch it on our own private devices, eyes glued to the screen. Ironically, Cinnovation aside, we are in a way right back where we started. Let the journey begin again.